Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than your heart could bear, just because you believed that love could heal even the deepest wounds? If so, this story might feel painfully familiar. But I urge you, stay with me until the end, because the truth inside this journey could very well change how you see yourself and what you allow into your life. As we grow older, the need to be seen, valued, and loved doesn't disappear. If anything, it becomes more tender. But what happens when the love we receive comes wrapped in criticism, silence, or subtle shaming? What happens when staying means losing a piece of who we are? This is the story of a man who tried to hold on to love until he realized the real loss was himself. And what he found, after walking away, is something many of us need to remember. Before we dive in, if you're here right now, I want you to pause and ask yourself this. When was the last time you put your self-respect before your need for connection? Now let's begin. In the beginning, it felt like magic. She made him feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Her words were gentle, her affection abundant. She called him wise, capable, and charming. And for a man who had lived through decades of quiet invisibility, her praise was a balm to the soul. He didn't just fall in love with her. He fell back in love with the version of himself she reflected. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, that warmth began to cool. At first, it came as small comments. "You should take better care of yourself," she said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He laughed it off, but soon the comments grew sharper. "You're too old for this. I need more than you can give." Her tone shifted, from admiration to condescension. Yet still he stayed. Why? Because, like many, he believed love meant endurance. That if he just proved himself enough, things would return to the beginning. The smiles, the praise, the sense of being wanted. But here is the truth. No love that costs you your dignity is worth holding on to. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever stayed too long hoping to feel worthy again, then keep watching. What comes next may not only open your eyes, but free your heart. He thought he could fix it, with patience, with kindness, with effort. He remembered how she once looked at him with admiration, and he longed for that gaze again. He adjusted, adapted, tried harder. He bought gifts, made her laugh, even changed routines to suit her needs. But no matter how much he gave, the warmth never fully returned. Instead, he began to shrink. Her criticisms weren't just about his age anymore. They targeted who he was at his core. She called him slow, predictable. She compared him to younger men, not in jest, but as a standard he could never meet. And still, part of him clung to hope. Maybe, he thought, if I just try a little harder, she'll love me like before. But here is the truth many are afraid to admit. When someone constantly asks you to be something else, it's not love, it's rejection in disguise. He wasn't just losing sleep, he was losing himself. The relationship had become a mirror that reflected only his insecurities. And each day, he began to see himself less as a man with value, and more as someone who needed to earn worth he already possessed. And that's when the quiet realization began to surface. Love shouldn't feel like a test you keep failing. If you've ever found yourself walking on eggshells, always adjusting to avoid criticism, always trying to be better just to be loved, know this. The problem isn't to you. It's the space you're in. You were never meant to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. One night, after another cutting remark, he found himself standing alone in the bathroom, looking in the mirror. And for the first time in years, he asked himself, "When did I become this small?" The man staring back at him wasn't weak. He was weary, worn down from chasing love that required him to erase himself. And that night, for the first time, he made a quiet vow. "I will not keep losing myself to be loved by someone else." What comes next in his journey isn't about revenge. It's about redemption. And if you're still watching, stay with me, because the next step he took may inspire you to take your own. The next morning, something was different. It wasn't dramatic or loud, it was quiet, steady, and unshakable. He woke up, and instead of thinking about how to please her, he thought about how to honor himself. He began the day not with worry, but with clarity. He brewed his coffee slowly, savoring the smell. He stepped outside and felt the morning air on his skin. And for the first time in months, he wasn't asking, "Will she notice?" He was asking, "Do I feel whole?" That shift, subtle but monumental, marked the beginning of his return. He didn't leave that day, not yet, but something had already changed inside him. He was beginning to remember the man he used to be before he started trying so hard to earn someone else's affection. A man who had dreams, stories, and a voice that deserved to be heard. In the days that followed, he started writing again, just for himself. Pages filled with thoughts, memories, reflections. He called it his return journal. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about finding his way back to the man she had made him forget. Every morning he wrote one truth: "I am enough." And the more he wrote it, the more he started to believe it. He called a friend he hadn't spoken to in years. They laughed. He found an old jazz record and let it play through the house. He danced alone in the kitchen. Not because anyone was watching, but because he felt alive. And that's what healing looks like. Not grand declarations or dramatic exits, but quiet acts of remembering your worth. If you've ever forgotten how valuable you are, if you've ever needed someone else to remind you, let this moment be your turning point. You don't need permission to rediscover yourself. You just need space and a little courage. So stay with me, because what he chose to do next wasn't just brave, it was life-changing. One evening, after weeks of silent reflection and small victories, he sat across from her. His voice was calm, not bitter, not angry, just steady. He told her how he felt, how her words had slowly chipped away at his confidence, how the relationship, once full of light, had become a shadow over his spirit. She scoffed at first, dismissed his feelings as dramatics, but he didn't flinch. For the first time, he wasn't asking for her to understand. He was telling his truth. He said, "I can't keep living like this. I can keep shrinking to fit into a place that doesn't honor who I am." And with that, he stood up, taller than he had in years. He walked away, not in anger, but in peace. It wasn't just a goodbye to her. It was a hello to himself. The days that followed weren't easy. The house felt bigger, quieter. The silence that once felt suffocating now felt sacred. He started to reclaim every corner of his life, not by replacing her, but by restoring himself. He dusted off his books. He cooked meals he enjoyed. He opened the windows and let fresh air in. The stillness was no longer loneliness, it was space. Space to breathe, to think, to become. This kind of solitude wasn't empty. It was rich. Rich with discovery, with healing, with a kind of joy that doesn't come from being seen by someone else, but from seeing yourself clearly. He began to notice the little things again. The way sunlight painted the walls in the morning, the sound of birds outside, the way his own laughter surprised him one afternoon. He was no longer performing. He was simply living. And that, dear listener, is where the real transformation begins. As the weeks turned into months, something began to blossom within him. He wasn't rushing to fill the space she had left behind. He was simply living more honestly than he had in years. One morning, he looked in the mirror and didn't see a man who had been abandoned. He saw a survivor, a man who had the courage to choose peace over performance. He smiled, not because everything was perfect, but because he finally felt whole again. He started reconnecting with old friends, calling those he hadn't spoken to in years. Some had passed, others welcomed him with warm laughter and long conversations. He picked up hobbies he had let go of, gardening, sketching, listening to jazz records late at night. These weren't distractions, they were returns. Returns to the things that had always brought him quiet joy. He also discovered something else, something deeper. The peace of no longer needing anyone's permission to feel good about himself. You see, aging isn't about fading, it's about refining. It's not about being less. It's about being more of who you truly are. He stopped dressing to impress. He dressed for comfort and joy. He stopped walking with doubt. He walked with steadiness. Every step, every breath, every small moment became an act of presence. He didn't need grand declarations of love. He didn't need to be someone's fantasy. He had become his own truth, and there's something undeniably beautiful about that. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt the sting of being overlooked, misunderstood, or unloved, remember, your story isn't over. It's evolving. And sometimes the most beautiful chapters come after the hardest pages. There is one truth that he now carries with him like a quiet flame. You don't have to be in someone else's arms to feel whole. You don't need validation to be valuable. You are not defined by how others see you, but by how you choose to see yourself. This man, once lost in a love that chipped away at his worth, now walks taller, not because he's younger, not because life suddenly got easier, but because he chose to value himself, even when others didn't. He realized something most people never do. Peace isn't found in chasing love. It's found in returning to yourself. He stopped apologizing for aging, stopped hiding his tenderness. He began to honor every line, every scar, every gray hair, not as flaws, but as proof that he had lived fully, deeply, bravely. If you've ever felt like you're too old to start again, let this be your reminder. You're not. You still have so much ahead, so much to give, so much to experience, so much to become. Solitude isn't a curse. It's an invitation to rediscover, to realign, and most of all, to remember that the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. So take this moment, reflect, breathe, and know this. You are enough. You always were. And if this message touched something in your heart today, share it. Let someone else see that it's never too late to choose self-respect over silence, joy over judgment, and love, real love over approval. Because the story of your life is still being written, and you hold the pen.